The last few years have seen a number of blockchains springing up across the world, and there are a number of apps being built on each of these blockchains. However, there's one problem. Right? These blockchains are like islands operating independently, and for you to move something from one island to another is becoming a Herculean task. And businesses are not investing, or rather, are looking at it as a risk to invest into creating a app probably on a particular blockchain because they're not sure that if tomorrow their use case changes or for whatever reason they think that another blockchain was much better, then they would have to probably recreate and reinvest efforts to do that. To solve such problems, Quant and many other projects are coming up. Quant is trying to solve this problem by unlocking the power of interoperability. They want to make sure that you can build something without the fear of having to move from one blockchain to the other. They're trying to make that interoperability very easy. If you look at their use cases, I am completely sold on it. I have no issues with the kind of problems and the use cases that this project is solving. It is a really important problem that they are solving. What impressed me the most, however, is their leadership. If you go down to the leadership section and look at their managing team, especially their CEO Gilbert, just go down and look at his experience. This guy has worked probably in all kinds of amazing places, right from working for the Queen of England to the Ministry of Justice, the various departments in the government of UK, to public sector or private sector companies like HSBC, like Mastercard, and so on. So this guy has had like some tremendous experience, and he finally ventured out on his own to start Quant. So going by the leadership, going by the kind of network he has, I'm completely sold on the team, on their project, on their idea, on what they're trying to do, the problem that they're trying to solve, their approach towards it. Absolutely fantastic. All that seems great. I have no problems with it. Now, should you, as an investor, really invest in it? Quant today is at $104. It's all-time high. Obviously, was sometime last year. At $427, it's 75% down from its all-time high, like most cryptos. Now, there is one interesting thing that happens with cryptos, right? This is probably, the first cycle and the first time this pattern will happen, which will probably go on every time from now on. Most of the crypto projects, they sort of started in the, between, let's say, 2016, 2017, 2018. They raised their fundings during that time. Most of them would have probably had an ICO and so on, or a private sale, and eventually they came onto the markets. But most of them raised some sort of funding back then. Quant is no different. Quant also probably raised their funding more than 4 years back, maybe around 2018 or prior to that. But what happens eventually is that there is a hype, there is a euphoria. Everything seems so cool. And this is when a lot of people want to get in. And the first bull run that sort of happened after Quant is raised some funding is largely the bull run that happened last year, and everybody wanted to get into it. Right, so you see this graph. It's so, it's absolutely crazy that people bought it as much as when it was $400, and after that it's completely crashed. This is a phenomenon that you'll see with a lot of cryptos, right? This is the first wave. They have experienced the first wave. There are a lot of people who bought at the top right here, maybe at $300, maybe at $400, right? Maybe somebody bought even at $200. The real deal, however, will happen when the next bull run happens, right? For you, this is the time to decide whether you should invest or not. And that solely depends on the kind of achievements that they have made rather than the promise of a problem that they're trying to solve. That is what we'll try and explore to see, based on some on-chain metrics, can we understand, is there some activity happening here? Is there something interesting happening here? So for that, let's go into the block and let's deep dive on different metrics. To begin with, right, look at the number of people who are holding Quant today. Are they profitable or not? About 39%, let's say close to 40% are profitable, 51% are not. Right? Large holders are about 68%. So that means largely whoever is holding has been holding it from inception. Right? This could be the founders, the founding team, early investors, and so on. Price correlation with Bitcoin in the last 30 days has been about 0.61. This is very good. If a crypto is delinking itself from Bitcoin, that means that the crypto is now having some independent existence for whatever reason, good or bad. It could be bad also, so that's a disclaimer. And if you look at the composition of, in terms of time held, 21% of people have been holding it for more than a year. Close to 70% have bought it in the last 1 year. And this is what really fears me. Because if you're bought it in the last 1 year, you probably bought it at a pretty high price, right, which is explained here. We'll deep dive on those numbers. And it all depends on whether Quant is able to achieve something. And those guys who bought it at $200 or $300 price point are now saying that, hey, yeah, Quant is doing something, so it might grow even further. Now let's start with, let's say, financial statistics. We'll look at a few important metrics, right? For instance, the global in and out of money. Who bought it at what price point? About 32% of addresses have bought it, below the current price point, right? So they're all in profit, and the rest of them, are probably at a loss or at a break-even point. What is important for me is this: the bulls and bears. Now, let me just scroll down to that. Yeah. If you look at the bulls and bears, it has broadly not changed, right? It's very close, right? It's a difference of 1 or 2. The bulls and bears are very, very fairly distributed. So this does not really give me that much, that much information. But for some cryptos, if the bulls and bears are highly different, then it's a big problem. If people are selling a lot, then you think that the price is low and you want to buy, then that might be a bad idea. Here, however, it's very close, so it's more or less a no indicator. We don't know if it is good or not. Now let's go look at network statistics. Right, now this is very important, right? You have to understand whether the network itself is growing, how many addresses are being created. This is an indicator of whether people are using it, right? As simple as that. If people are not using it, then there's no point of it. If you look at daily active addresses, right, this is historically, you look at daily active addresses, it is somewhere around 800, 600, 350, etc., etc. It has barely crossed 1000 a few times, and this has been the case historically. And except during the bull runs, this has not really happened. And off late, it's trying to pick up. Is that a good thing? I don't think so, right? Because the number of active addresses have not gone up. That means most of these guys are not people who are building anything over here. Rather, these are people who are investors looking to move out or move in their money. Total addresses, this is good. They have seen a consistent increase. If you look at that graph, there's a nice hockey stick kind of a growth that is happening. If you look at Ethereum's graph, it is very similar, although numbers are very different. As of now, there are well over, I think, 80,000 addresses at this point. If you look at number of transactions, this is what again is bad, because number of transactions have been very low, right? This is unfortunately bad. Transaction volumes, again, nothing great, right? It has not been that great at all. These are some of the factors that really scares me into whether should I buy it, should I not buy it, and so on. Look at average time that the token is held, that's about 2.5 years. That means most of the early founders, they're not dumping. That's a good indicator. If the founders, the early investors, the early team members, they're not dumping, it means that they have confidence that this might do well in the future. Right? Else the earliest investor would have dumped it by now, because he probably is privy to some information that we are not sure of. Let's look at ownership statistics, right? Who owns what? Pure things like concentration of the owners, all this matters, because if a crypto is highly concentrated in the hands of a few people, there is a huge risk that if somebody decides to dump, then the crypto price might just crash overnight and you wouldn't even understand. Right? Now, let's look at this. Broadly, about 54% or 55% are held by whales, about 13% are held by investors, and retail volume is about 32%. For a project at this stage, I would say this is okay, not too shabby. I think in the next bull run, as the prices increase, most of these whales will start selling. Right? The whale percentage will sort of reduce. In fact, if you look at absolute numbers, whales were holding a lot of quant before, and now they have significantly reduced their position. This will continue to happen because a lot of early investors might want an exit. Large holders inflow, that is not really changed. If you look at this graph, it is pretty much the same. Outflow inflow numbers have been pretty much the same. Now let's look at exchange information. This is absolutely important, right? because if people are moving cryptos out of their exchange into a wallet, most likely, right, this means that people have bought it, people want to store it, they're not interested in trading it, they're not interested in doing anything with it, they're not looking to sell it in the immediate future. So most of these guys are probably holders. If people are looking, if there is more inflows from the exchange, from the private wallets to the exchanges, that means people are looking to sell. What does it look like here? Net inflows have largely been around zero. That means the number of people moving it into the exchanges and the number of people moving it out of the exchanges is largely centered around zero. If you look at this line here, the blue line, it is shuttling around zero, which means that this, people are neither selling nor buying, or the number of people selling and buying is pretty much equal. So again, a very undecided kind of does not really give you much of an indication on whether that's good or bad. Lastly, let's look at social sentiments. This is important because if people, right, markets are largely moved by sentiment, by emotions. If people think that something is good, even though it might not be, the price can go up. Right? As of now, broadly, if you look at, let's say, Telegram sentiment, it's mostly positive, right? Mostly neutral, but among positive and negative, large chunk of people are positive. Same goes for Twitter sentiment, right? Largely, about 96%, or currently about 21%, 22% are positive, whereas 76% are neutral, 1% is negative. So while there is no negative indication towards this, great negative indication or negative sentiment towards this crypto, the positive sentiment is mildly there, but most people are neutral. In fact, if you go through every single metric we saw till now, that's what it has been, right? Most of the metrics are very neutral. If you look at GitHub comments, now this is absolutely important, right? It has not changed drastically. It has not shot up like enormously, and that is, for me, is a cause of concern, because if development is stagnated, then it's a cause of concern. Search trends have again been largely stable. I don't see extraordinary jump in search trends. What I can tell you after going through all this, metrics about Quant, right from ownership, right from exchange data, social sentiments, etc., everything seems to be, a straight line. Right? It is so dead, honestly, that it does not, there's no enthusiasm. There's nothing positive to look forward to. Neither is there anything negative to look forward to. The crypto is sort of, under the ground. It's not doing anything. That is, for me, honestly a concern, because as an investor, I want to see activity. I want to see month on month growth. I want to see something interesting happening, and I want to get in and get out, in a fair bit of time. Maybe I want to hold it for 1 year, for 3 years, whatever, but I want to get in and get out. And for that to happen, the network has to prove itself. The crypto has to prove itself, has to do something, for heaven's sake. And only then I know that I can hold on to it for slightly longer, or should I exit and get away. You should, in any of this, it's as good as an early stage startup. You should fail fast and move on. If you're trying to do something, do it fast and move on. Right? As simple as that. To me, Quant is a crypto that is being very stable, that is being very conservative, probably. That is, this might go back to the fact that the CEO is somebody who's been in private sector, who's been in government sector for a very long time, and somebody with that kind of an experience, I think, would largely be very conservative. If you work for HSBC, I've worked for HSBC. If you work for big banks like that, you tend to become risk averse. So that will trickle down to your entire team, right? And I feel, looking at all this, Quant has sort of reached that stage. It has trickled down to the entire team, and probably, probably Quant is at a stage where they do not want to take a lot of risk, and they don't want to try too many things. That is what I feel is really holding this back. Else I would have seen a lot of activity. For me, Quant is a no buy. At least I'm not getting into it. If you do invest in it, it's not too bad. If that's totally up to you. But honestly, I don't think you lose much money or something if you do invest. It's not like a absolute no. But for me, at least, it's not exciting enough to really put any money into Quant. And for those reasons, I think I'm totally out of Quant. If you like this, do subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. Welcome to the Wave Crypto Club. Stay tuned for more such informative videos.